mama, what turns on your lights? The full moon is calling.
Well, that would be the title track to the fourth studio album from the legendary Eagles. It was released, that album, you know the name of it already, right? One of These Nights, on this day back in 1975. 51 years ago, this June the 10th, One of These Nights, released by the Eagles, and it would become their first number one album on the Billboard chart. So the first three did not go number one, but the fourth studio album from the Eagles, One of These Nights, was a number one album. The album produced 3 top 10 singles: Lion Eyes, Take It to the Limit, and the song you just heard, One of These Nights, which actually went to number one on Billboard's Hot 100, the second single from the Eagles to go number one. The first, was that enough time to think about it? Best of My Love was the first Eagles single to make it to number one on the Billboard Hot 100. It was followed by One of These Nights. The album released on this day in 1975. As mentioned, this day is June the 10th, a Wednesday morning. Welcome to the program. Thank you, as always, for stopping by and sharing some of your valuable time with us. I thought I would take an opportunity to remind you that we are always recruiting for new members of Farwell's force. We are collectively a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. And all you have to do to become a Farwell's Force member in good standing is listen for 15 minutes. Now, you do have to listen for 15 minutes every day. I'm a bit of a stickler like that. If you listen for more than 15 minutes, all power to you. Love you for that. My 9 a.m.ers who are here right till 1 p.m. So you're a 9 a.m.er and a 1 p.m.er. Fantastic. But if you find 15 minutes in your day, every day, whatever 15 minutes it happens to be, you are welcome to join our growing force. We will assign you a number, or you can pick a number for yourself and become one of our randos on Farwell's Force. But drop an email anytime, mike@570news.com, or just give us a call. You don't have to be an active participant in the show. You can just be an active listener. Calling is that much better, but we are happy to assign you a number to join us on Farwell's Force. The force for good, the force for change, the force to be reckoned with. Speaking of numbers, how about that 50-50 jackpot? Opened up my computer this morning, and there it is, more than $74,000, which means the take-home prize is more than $37,000. And we have an early bird prize from the Better Business Bureau being awarded on Friday. $1,500 cash from the Better Business Bureau to you if you have your tickets before Friday at noon. So why not take a moment today? Go to cf5050.ca. Buy yourself some Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle tickets. Not only will you have a chance to win the $1,500 early bird prize from the Better Business Bureau, but your numbers will stay in there for the overall jackpot, which we are awarding at the end of the month, on June the 30th to be exact, because, you know, that would be the end of the month. So a great jackpot for you. Also a great jackpot for cystic fibrosis research. cf5050.ca is the place to go to get your tickets. I am wearing a different shirt today. And if you are listening on the radio as opposed to watching on Rogers TV, you're like, I don't know what kind of shirt you wore yesterday, Farwell. I'll tell you right now and remind you that during the month of June, and I was saying this to one of my coworkers this morning, Farwell for Hire month is usually May. This year, Farwell for Hire month is June. Whenever Farwell for Hire month comes around, it's all about Farwell all the time. Like, this is my month now, and I take no prisoners. It's just all about me. I'm sorry about that. But I also wear a branded Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign T-shirt every day. And one of the fine folks I ran into on the weekend at Barry's Asparagus when we were doing our deep fried asparagus event said, you got to change your T-shirt once in a while. I said, I change it every day. I have lots of these T-shirts. She didn't believe me. I tried to make her smell my armpits then because that's the kind of guy that I am. She didn't want to do that either. But anyway, it's true. That's a true story. I would never steer you wrong. Nonetheless, I have multiple, and it's always a clean Farwell for Hire T-shirt every day, but it's the same black T-shirt with white printing on it. Except today. Today, I am wearing a special Farwell for Hire T-shirt because it's a special Farwell for Hire for me after the show today. I get the chance to pay a visit to my friends Paul and Arlene. I met them years ago during the Farwell for Hire campaign when they had some stuff to donate to a local thrift store and they needed the vehicle to get it to the thrift store. Well, I had that vehicle, my Malul Blamey Mobile back then, and I filled up the truck with their boxes and got it down to the thrift store. But we really connected, Paul, Arlene, and I, over that Farwell for Hire job that they hired me to do. Turns out we are all passionate Leafs fans and Rangers fans and Butter Tart fans, and we might even enjoy the occasional wobbly pop, Paul and I. Nonetheless, Paul bought me the T-shirt that I am wearing today, and it says, "Just one before I die." Again, we are passionate Leafs fans. And unfortunately for me, like I may not get this T-shirt's wish to come true. Just one, Maple Leafs. Please, Stanley Cup, before I die. I don't know. Paul is a little bit older than me. He has seen the Leafs win the Stanley Cup. I have not, but I always put this shirt on when I'm going to visit with Paul and Arlene. And over the years, since that first time they hired me to do a job, it wasn't that tough a job, but now we just use Farwell for Hire as an excuse to get together, catch up with one another, and shoot the breeze for a little bit. So I'm wearing my Just One Before I Die shirt in my earnest hope that the Toronto Maple Leafs, one day before I shake free from this mortal coil, win a Stanley Cup. Is it going to happen? I'm starting to have my doubts. So when I visit with Paul and Arlene later today, I'll get Paul to tell me those stories again. Those stories about how wonderful it was back in the days of black and white TV and Foster Hewitt on the radio when the Leafs won a Stanley Cup. On the Farwell for Hire note, I would like to encourage you to, because we have so many local businesses that get on board and offer products for sale throughout the entire month, and a portion of the sales gets donated to our campaign. I just had an email this morning from my friend Leslie who said that Farwell for Hire hat trick shortbread cookie from Dana Short Gourmet and Gifts was the best shortbread I've ever had. Leslie, I'm happy you enjoyed it. You can enjoy it too. Just go into Dana Short on Herb Street, pick up a bag of shortbread cookies. They're the hat trick shortbread because they've got 3 different kinds of chips. You see, 3 golds for a hat trick, 3 different kinds of chocolate chips or chips. There's a white chocolate in there too. In those shortbread cookies, $2 from every bag sold is being donated to our campaign. At Orala Pastries and Provisions, they are selling a dirty soda. I guess dirty sodas are like all the thing, right? All the rage right now. They're calling it the Filthy Farwell. I mean, usually you just get that on the radio between 9 and 1, but if you visit Orala on Frederick Street in Kitchener, you can order yourself a Filthy Farwell and a donation will be made to the campaign. Same thing with Sweet and Savory Pie Company, butter tarts by the half dozen or dozen, $2 for every dozen, $1 for every half dozen sold being donated to our campaign. Sweet Carolines on Ottawa Street by Lackner. If you buy Moon Mist ice cream or the Farwell float, they are making a donation to our campaign. Don't forget Block 3 Brewing with the Face for Radio IPA. And perhaps most importantly, because it's imminent, tomorrow after the show, so Thursday afternoon starting at 3, I'm going to be at 4 Quarter Butcher Shop on Louisa Street near Weber, and we are serving up smash burgers for you. I'll be at the grill serving up those burgers. You come on by, grab a bite to eat, either a late lunch or an early dinner or however you want to do it. 3 to 6 tomorrow afternoon at 4 Quarter Butcher Shop on Louisa near Weber. Come on by for a smash burger feast, and proceeds will be going to Farwell for Hire. All of this is documented on our Farwell for Hire Facebook page. So just look up Farwell, the number 4 Hire on Facebook. All of it's there. And if you can support these businesses that support us, we would be ever so grateful for that and raise even more money for cystic fibrosis research. It's all about helping the families in this community who are still navigating this terminal disease. And hopefully, and here's another truth for you today. I believe in my heart of hearts that we have a better chance of finding a cure for cystic fibrosis than we have of the Leafs winning the Stanley Cup. And I'm not even joking about that. I am a little bit hurt as a Leafs fan, but honestly, I really believe in our ability to get to that cure for cystic fibrosis. So check out the Facebook page, Farwell, the number 4 Hire. Lots of businesses are behind us all month long, and smash burgers tomorrow at Four Quarter Butcher Shop, 3 until 6, Louisa Street, near Weber in Kitchener. Would love to see you there. I have a question for the city of Kitchener. I feel as though, after driving around and doing some errands yesterday, that the city of Kitchener may be short on a very important supply. I'll get to that in just a minute. But it is that time of the show where we should do the Farwell Show 5. And we will start at number 1, of course, where boating will still be allowed on the water at Victoria Park. An avid canoeist was disappointed earlier this week when new signage at the park prevented his usual paddling, and he posted to social media about it. The city now says the signage was posted in keeping with all safety measures at stormwater areas, but it recognizes, the city does, the unique history of Victoria Park. A review is now underway, with boating likely to return to Victoria Park by the end of the month. We always call it the Victoria Park Lake, and that's cute and everything, but really it's the Victoria Park Stormwater Retention Pond. Nonetheless, you should be boating there again in due course. Number 2, the Waterloo Regional Health Network is in search of its next leader. President and CEO Ron Gagnon has announced his retirement effective next March. Gagnon has worked in our local hospital system for 8 years, and he was a key part of the creation of the new Waterloo Regional Health Network when Grand River and St. Mary's hospitals merged. Ren's board of directors will work with a headhunting firm to find Gagnon's replacement by the end of this year, with plans to have them ready for the job when Gagnon retires next March. Number 3, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, an Ontario Provincial Police Constable has been killed in the line of duty. It happened yesterday around 12:30 in the afternoon as provincial police were conducting an investigation near the town of Hearst, that is in far northern Ontario. 29-year-old Constable Tarun Bali was seriously injured, later died in hospital. Bali works out of the GTA, but he was on deployment with the OPP's James Bay detachment. An 18-year-old man has been charged with first-degree murder. Number 4, a baseball diamond in Guelph is receiving $2.6 million in a Field of Dreams grant from the Jays Care Foundation. The money will be used to refurbish Joe Kane Field at Centennial Park on Municipal Street in Guelph. Cambridge's Kin 1 ball diamond also getting $171,000 to help make the field more accessible to players of all physical abilities. The $2.6 million, though, to Joe Kane Field in Guelph is the largest of the 22 grants given out this year by the Jays Care Foundation. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, only 100 more days until the home opener of the next Kitchener Rangers season. He says, what? What do you mean it's only 100 days? That's right, 100 days until we're back playing regular season OHL hockey at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. That's what happens when less than 2 weeks ago you win the Memorial Cup. You play until May 31st, you get a short off-season. The Kitchener Rangers will host the Owen Sound Attack on Friday, September the 18th at the Memorial Auditorium. And that means, of course, the Memorial Cup championship banner will be raised before the game.
Bueller.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, the 10th of June. Question for you. And really, if any of my friends at the city of Kitchener are listening, elected or otherwise, I'm directing this question to you specifically. I'm wondering, I'm just curious, because you see, I was oot and a boot yesterday afternoon running some errands. And I will confess that Carol sent me an email last week and had noticed this issue and thought it might be worthy of some conversation. And so when I happened to be in an area that Carol made reference to, specifically Belmont Avenue near Victoria, Carol is spot on. And I realized as I continued my travels yesterday, it's not just the Belmont Avenue Victoria area. This might be a problem across the city. So my question to you, City of Kitchener, is, has anybody checked the supply of paint lately? You might be running low on paint. Would somebody please go to the big inventory room where you keep the paint and see if there is anything in stock? Specifically, the paint you use to mark the lines on the road. My goodness gracious. I felt when I was on Belmont approaching Victoria yesterday that I was on that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer took over a part of the New Jersey Turnpike and decided that people needed wider lanes, so he went out and erased some of the lane markings. I'm not sure there's a lane marking at all on Belmont. And as I turned from Belmont onto Victoria, there was a truck. So I'm turning left at the green light. There was a truck on Victoria at the red light in the left-hand turning lane, if you can call it that. But he was not exactly I had to work my way around him, put it that way. But then I realized, well, how the hell does he know where the left-hand turning lane is on Victoria? Because it's not marked. Like, you can barely see a line. And then I'm driving down Victoria Street more, and I'm like, where are the lane markings on Victoria? And it wasn't just there. Later, as I continued my errands and I was making my way to the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, I was on River Road, going to make a left there at the gas station to go down Ottawa Street. There ain't no left-hand turn lane marking. It's a free-for-all out there. So I'm just curious, Kitchener, did you run out of paint, specifically the paint used to mark the lanes and the lines on the road? Because maybe it's just me, but those things are kind of helpful so people, stay in their lane. I talk about this in the figurative political sense all the time. We've got to stay in our lane. Well, if you're driving on Belmont Avenue or Victoria Street, or you're making a left-hand turn from River to Ottawa in Kitchener, there ain't no lane to stay in. So just curious, Kitchener. Could somebody just go check? Give me a call. Let me know. Is there anything in the storeroom, yellow or white, to paint the ding-dang lines on the ding-dang road? Because I think you need... It's Farwell for hire time. Call me up. I'll come out there and paint them my darn self. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Russell sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. Subject line, road lines. He says, Mike, this is a problem province-wide. I see it everywhere. And Craig concurs. Another email to Mike at 570news.com. He has also noticed the issues when it comes to lane markings on our local roads. He says Weber Street is also bad. For me, the worst was Belmont and Victoria yesterday. River and Ottawa wasn't all that great, at least in the left-hand turning lane. Look, these are the little things. Do you remember, was it last summer or the summer before, we noticed how the boulevards along major thoroughfares weren't being kept as neat as they used to when it comes to mowing, etc. These are the little things that if we are not doing very well, people start to raise eyebrows and wonder what in HE double hockey sticks is going on out there. And Russell's point about this being a province-wide issue, I forget where we were, so forgive me, but I'm pretty sure it was Ontario. It was on one of our recent motorcycle trips my buddy Daryl and I like to take in riding season. And we were up somewhere on a road, and we got stuck behind the vehicle that was painting the lines on the road. And this is I'm pretty sure we were North Ontario. It could have been Quebec, but I'm pretty sure it was Ontario. And anyway, these lines were pretty well marked. And yet they were getting a refresh. And we kind of joked that it's a make-work project because these lines didn't even really need to be touched up. But that was way up there in the North Country. Way down here in southern Ontario, we are having some trouble when it comes to the lane markings on our roads. And it's just one of those little things. It reminds me, and I remember sharing this story with you some time ago when I was out walking Rosie the pandemic pup, and I came by a crew that was out painting some markings in a bike lane on a street that we were walking by, and there were three guys on the crew. And I know how this all works, okay? I get it. But one was basically putting the template on the ground. The other was bringing the spray gun over to paint within the lines of that template. And then there was another guy on the truck doing whatever the guy on the truck needed to do. But it reminded me of a part-time job I had some time ago when I was a younger lad. And it was with a company that painted the lines in parking lots. So they would be contracted to come to a parking lot where you work, for example, and paint the lines for the parking spots in that parking lot. And do you know how many guys were on that crew? One. I mean, we had more than one truck, but I would go into work every morning. I would pick up my book with my work order in it. I would get into the truck, and I would go and paint the ding-dang parking lot by myself. That's what I would do. And that was, I don't know, 40, 35 years ago. And now today, what one guy could do 35 years ago now takes a crew of three. Listen, Kitchener, I don't care how many people on the crew it takes. Just get them out there and touch up. We'll just call it a touch-up. It's just a little cosmetic surgery, okay? A little touch-up for the lane markings on our roads. It is particularly bad at Belmont and Victoria. Belmont does not appear to have any lane markings whatsoever. And what faint lines are visible become even less visible at night, and heaven forbid that it rains. So if we are all about road safety and we are all about Vision Zero, how about a little touch-up? Just check the supply room and see if we have the paint there so that we can get those lines touched up. Just a small suggestion from your friends here at 570 News Radio. Okay, we're going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then let's talk about the thing that I don't think Prime Minister Mark Carney wants you to talk about, and I don't think a lot of economists want us to talk about either. But Pierre Poilievre certainly wants you to talk about it. The question is, are we in it or not? And what we're in is a recession, or are we? Let's talk about it on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The question is this: is Canada in a recession? And the answer might depend on who you ask, but we are going to ask Moshe Lander, a senior lecturer in the Department of Economics at Concordia University, who joins the show this morning. And Moshe, one thing that we have heard for certain and frequently of late is that Canada is in a technical recession. So how does a technical recession differ from a, non-technical or regular recession?
So the definition of a recession is if you have 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. So the difference between a normal recession and a technical recession is that the most recent data we got for the first quarter of this year was that GDP declined by 0.1 of 1% of GDP. So it's so mild that while it technically meets the definition of a recession, there's a good chance that that number is going to be revised. Much of StatsCan's data is ultimately revised when they get more accurate information. So let's say that when the second quarter data comes out, they say, oh, by the way, we had to revise the first quarter number. We didn't shrink by 0.1%. We actually grew by 0.1%. Does that mean then we didn't have a recession? So they're calling it a technical recession because the data says so, even though people might say, wait a second, I don't know that I necessarily feel like a recession, or in fact, I've been feeling like a recession for years, and you're just calling it now.
Politically, I find this to be very interesting because federal conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is talking about this full-blown recession. And if we're just looking at numbers that are that thin on the margins, I can't help but think there might be political risk here for Mr. Poilievre if the numbers turn back in a positive favor.
Absolutely. And he seems to constantly be fumbling when he's put on the 5-yard line. He was handed an election that was his to win. He found a way to blow it. He was given a situation here where he could pick on so many different things, and instead he wants to obsess on 1/10 of 1% of GDP. Look, I don't think that Canadians would be surprised if we're in an actual recession, given everything that's gone on between Canada and the U.S. over the last 18 months. Canada's facing the greatest risks to its economy outside of COVID since the Second World War. So the fact that it even took us 18 months to get to a point where we're even talking about, are we actually in a recession, is actually showing the strength of the Canadian economy. So yes, you're right. If he's going to nitpick this, that's a real problem. But the other part of the problem, too, for him is that he had that grandiose announcement where he said, France is not in a recession, Italy's not in a recession, Germany's not in a recession, but Canada's in a recession. You know, my thought was, France doesn't have a border with the U.S., Italy doesn't have a border with the U.S., and Germany doesn't have a border with the U.S. So, they might be able to avoid a recession because they're not as tied to the hip as Canada is to the U.S. economy. And no matter how much Mark Carney wants to travel the world, it's not going to change the basic geography that we're always going to be tied to the U.S. economy, tariffs or not.
And from the other side of that coin, Moshe, I have to think that Prime Minister Carney and the federal Liberals are doing their utmost to stay away from the language and the word recession, because how we as Canadian consumers perceive that word or the state of the economy influences our spending habits, right?
Yeah, psychology really does matter. And if you feel that things are going badly for you, then your first instinct would be to scale back your own spending. But that, in fact, could make a bad situation worse. That if consumers, which make up 2/3 of the economy, decide that there's too much risk to be spending right now, then 0.1 of 0.1% could turn into something much more substantial. So, yes, they don't want to use recession. And I think that's why they put the label on it of, well, technically it might be a recession, but don't worry about it. You know, the thing that I find the kids use these days, Mike, which I don't really care for, but I like the idea, is they call it a me-session. And they basically look around them at a micro level and say, look, if I don't have a job, my friends don't have jobs, and my family don't have jobs, you could tell me that the Canadian economy is growing. I really don't care. I feel like I'm having a recession. And so, you know, it's important then not just to talk about that macro data and how much did GDP grow, but what are the personal experiences that are going on? And I think most Canadians would feel that over the last 20, 30 years, things have gotten substantially worse in terms of their personal finances, the amount of debt that they have, the standard of living. They're going to look at their children and say, I'm not entirely sure you will have it better than I did. And that's the first generation in a very long time that's going to have that conversation.
We keep talking about this.
2 women in the region.
1/10 of 1% of GDP. What is GDP and why is it an important measurement towards whether or not we're in a recession or not?
GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced in Canada over the last 3 months. And so really all it means is just how much stuff are we making. But when you talk about how much stuff are we making, remember that whatever it is that we make is somebody's income, and it's also somebody's expenditures. So when we talk about how much GDP there is, we're talking about how much income is being generated and how much spending is going on. It's two sides of the same coin. Just think about that the next time you go to Tim Hortons. Your expenditure on a coffee is somebody's income, and whether that's the people who work at Tim Hortons, the shareholders, the landlord, the suppliers, that money is going into somebody's pocket. So when we say then that GDP is declining, that means then that overall spending is falling and overall income is falling. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody's experiencing it the same way. Some might have said, well, my income went up last year, so I'm not experiencing recession. That's fine, but there must be somebody else then in the economy whose income not only fell, but fell enough to offset your increase. And so it has distributional issues as well. But beyond just kind of the technical words of the GDP and what it means, a lot of the stuff that Canadians hold dear to them, clean air, clean water, leisure time, and quality of life, it's highly correlated with GDP. So even if we don't actually care about the number itself, Canada started caring about the environment when we got rich enough to care about the environment, or we started looking at cutting back from a 6-day work week to a 5-day work week, and now even the conversation of a 4-day work week, because we got rich enough that we could afford to enjoy a little bit of leisure time in our lives. And so if GDP is not growing as fast as it otherwise could, it means then that the things that we might value that are not monetary might also be suffering as well.
What indicators do you look for to determine the overall health of our economy?
I really focus on one thing above all others, and it's really not talked about much. It's productivity. Productivity is, in a simple sense, GDP per hour worked. And so it's essentially how much output can you produce per hour. That's been flat or falling for the better part of 35 years. So whenever I hear Pierre Poilievre, who we talked about earlier, try and criticize the Carney government or the Liberal government or the Liberals in general, he's missing the mark. This actually goes back to Brian Mulroney, and it's both left and right that have failed Canadians. Our productivity 35 years ago was a little more than 90% of the U.S. level, and it's now below 65% of the U.S. level. And for anybody who says, well, that's because Americans are workaholics and they're super productive, not really. The last 35 years has seen small gains for the U.S., but outright declines for Canada. And the reason is that a lot of Canadian industry has become non-competitive. You and I could probably make an alphabet out of all of the industries that aren't competitive: airlines, banks, cell phone service providers, donut shops, and all the way down the line. When you lack competition in industries, businesses become complacent. They're not worried that some business will come along and steal their customers away with a better product or with a more innovative approach. So because they become complacent, it also radiates down to the worker then. You make sure that the worker doesn't have the best technology or the best capital equipment to make them their most productive selves. And so when workers go and ask for raises, the boss says, why? You're not working any harder. You're not any more productive than you were before. At best, you can get a cost of living adjustment. At worst, you won't even get that. And so for Canadians who feel that their standard of living is declining, it really is that productivity number that's holding things back. And so there's a lot of things that the government could do to try and boost that. But because they're so focused on 0.1% rather than the real issues that are affecting Canadians, they keep missing the mark then, and they keep having these petty squabbles that don't solve things. And in fact, over time, we've really noticed that that productivity problem has become a real issue for many, many Canadians.
Based on the reasons you just shared then, Moshe, would one of the ways, perhaps a key way of increasing or improving productivity be some sort of anti-monopoly legislation?
Yes, exactly. And so even beyond just anti-monopoly legislation, it's how about creating a groundwork for competition to thrive. So, what's the fear of breaking up the Star Alliance? Think about that the next time you're on an Air Canada flight and they say we're a proud member of the Star Alliance. All I can hear when I'm sitting there is you stitched up an agreement with Lufthansa, KLM, Air France to agree not to compete with each other. And so the way that you eliminated competition was by forming a cartel. Banks. Allow American banks to come in. You still have to follow Canadian law. You still have to submit to Canadian supervision. But hey, if those American banks can come in here and offer lower mortgage rates or better rates on savings account, let them in. And the same thing we just heard a few weeks ago, that Tim Hortons is now going to have some competition coming from Dunkin' Donuts. Whether you're a Dunkin' fan or not, the fact is that's going to force Tim Hortons to up their game a little bit. So it's always good for consumers then, because you get better product variety, lower prices, and greater quantities. That's obviously going to help our standard of living, but it's also going to make sure that when they up their game by going to their workers and say, listen, I need you to pitch in here. And the worker's going to say, really? Give me more money and you can have whatever you like.
Always great to get your perspective on the show. Really appreciate it, Moshe. Thank you very much for being here.
Anytime.
Moshe Lander is a senior lecturer in the Department of Economics at Concordia University. Are we or are we not in a recession? I think that having listened to Moshe, he would say no. The technical recession, by definition, sure, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth in GDP, but we're talking 0.1% of that overall number. And this then becomes that political hot potato, right? Pierre Poilievre is putting all of his eggs in the recessionary basket. And if GDP turns in the next quarter and the quarter after that, then those eggs begin to break if you are the leader of the federal Conservatives. I'm also quite intrigued by what Moshe was saying about productivity. This is something that has been a concern to me for quite some time, and those numbers are pretty stark, from 90% of the productivity of our neighbors to the south to now less than 65%. And is the lack of competition perhaps a reason for that? How are you feeling today about the state of the economy? Because I think our perceptions of this mean an awful lot. That's why, of course, the government of the day will want to steer clear of the word recession. Because if we feel as though we are in the midst of a recession, it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? We spend less, we save more, the economy sputters, etc. But how are you feeling generally about the state of our economy today? Are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? How is the affordability crisis impacting you? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We'll take your calls after this timeout. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Canada started caring about the environment when we got rich enough to care about the environment, or we started looking at cutting back from a 6-day work week to a 5-day work week, and now even the conversation of a 4-day work week, because we got rich enough that we could afford to enjoy a little bit of leisure time in our lives. And so if GDP is not growing as fast as it otherwise could, it means then that the things that we might value that are not monetary might also be suffering as well.
Moshe Lander is a senior lecturer in the Department of Economics at Concordia University. A technical recession, yes, but 0.1% of GDP by way of negative growth is not something that is alarming to Moshe. I just wonder, though, how you feel, your perceptions of our economy today. How is the economy doing through your eyes? Let's go to the phones. George, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Your guest, Moshe, he explained it very, very well. But here's my perception. Mike, as you know, I make extra money. I sell old baseball and hockey cards. But over the last 5 months, I've had to put aside. The markup is just not there. People don't have that extra money to go spending on their favorite hockey card or old baseball cards. People are worried about paying their rent, buying food, and paying their bills. So I've really noticed it that way, so much so I've completely put it aside for now.
Yeah, George, I appreciate that. Obviously, that would fall into disposable and or discretionary income, a very nice to have if you're a collector and maybe you're just not collecting right now. And when George talks about paying one's bills, I just think back on something we talked about yesterday, and that is the 12,000 notices that the city of Kitchener has sent out about overdue tax payments, property tax payments here in the city. It's a 9% increase year over year compared to last year. So that is a signal of some sort for sure. Greg, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Just a comment here. My house backs onto Homer Watson Boulevard. And on a given day, I would have to estimate that maybe 5,000, 6,000 transport trucks travel up and down this road. I mean, transport trucks are the backbone of our economy. They make the goods move. If they don't move, I don't see this happening at all. I think it's a bunch of hogwash.
So you're saying the economy is doing well because all those trucks are out there?
Right on. If they don't move, we don't get product.
Yeah. You know what, Greg? Listen, great point and a great observation. And how many times have we said, right? If you got it, a truck brought it. And Greg says, looking out his back window, he sees plenty of transport trucks on the road moving those goods to market. Sean, Farwell's Force, member number 165. Good morning.
Good morning. I actually think, considering what's going on in the world, like with the war in the Persian Gulf causing the cost of fuel to go up, which affects everything right through the supply chain, we're actually not doing too bad. And don't forget, you have a government to the south that's actively hostile to us by trying to remove all our economic supports. Like companies are trying to move stuff into the U.S. to avoid tariffs. I think we're actually doing surprisingly well, in spite of all the headwinds, and to have just a portion of a percent down is not too bad. And I think Pierre Poilievre is being very disingenuous to totally ignore the realities, the worldwide situation, when he's criticizing our prime minister for this recession, as he puts it. I mean, really, what would he have done different? Because I doubt he has the diplomatic chops to do what our current prime minister has done, quite frankly. I mean, what would he do? Surrender? So I really think we're doing okay.
All right, Sean, appreciate that call. It's all relative. Sean says could be a lot worse, and let's not forget the actively hostile neighbor to the south. David, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for making it.
I don't think we are in a recession, but I truly think we're heading into a recession. And I think partially it's because of the relationship between Canada and the United States. But more importantly, I think is what you mentioned, people are starting to cut back on things. They're not taking maybe that weekend trip away or renting a cottage or stuff like that. They're just facing with these high fuel costs, grocery costs, and everything. And just to make an example, I am a senior, and I get that Trillium benefit. I got my increase today of 4 cents. And on the same token, I got my property tax that went up $35. So I think this is what's driving people not to spend their money, which I'm not an economist, could push us into a recession or a mini recession. That's my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you sharing your feelings. That's what the show is for. And I love hearing what it looks like and or feels like to you as we navigate some pretty choppy waters right now. We'll squeeze in one more. I don't have much time, but Joe is on the line. I got about 40 seconds, Joe.
We are a supplier to the trucking industry. They're laying off drivers, laying off mechanics. Lion Force, huge company out of Toronto, just filed for Chapter 11. Things are not good. I've never before heard of mechanics being laid off in the 20 years I'm doing this. So it's tough out there if you're in the trucking business.
All right, Joe, I really appreciate that perspective. And there you go, one of those trades where we would think there's always work, right? Greg called earlier, says, I see all these trucks up and down the road. Joe says one of these companies is laying off their truck mechanics. An update on the way from the 570 News Center, and then we mind Ottawa's business as we do every Wednesday morning. Blacklock's reporter joins us next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Wednesday morning after our 10 a.m. update, we turn our attention to the nation's capital and the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering the capital with neither politics nor punditry. That would be the Blacklock's Reporter. You can find their great work online at blacklocks.ca. Well worth the subscription because you get the stuff there that you don't get anywhere else. Tom Korski is the managing editor of the Blacklock's Reporter and joins us for these weekly chats. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Mike.
I think if I'm I don't know, it's more than one hand I have to count on, but it might have been 7 years ago we started trying to get some legislation passed on internet controls. How are we doing on that up in Ottawa?
It is. I guess they're counting on 3 times lucky today. They're going to table their bill. Interestingly, in the dying minutes of the spring session of the spring sitting of the House, they're scheduled to go on their long summer adjournment on the 19th. So a week from Friday. Why has this failed? Well, a couple of reasons. It's always overreach. They started out, Cabinet has had a fetish for internet control. By the way, they will talk about public safety. They will talk about hate speech. All of that is irrelevant because Parliament in 1970 passed a hate crimes law. This is not about child pornography or meth dealers on the net. This is nothing about that. This is regulation of legal internet content that may hurt someone's feelings. That's the problem, Mike. And they've run across, left, right, and center, right across the political spectrum. Critics who've said this is government overreach. It's probably unconstitutional. We'll see what the bill is going to say this afternoon, Mike. But I have to tell you, the Cabinet has been a slow learner on this. And the original iterations of their proposal, they were going to have, I'm going to keep this short, they were going to have a digital safety commissioner take complaints in secret, behind closed doors, with powers to block websites. Well, you might as well live in the Soviet Union. This was their starting place. Good luck.
Yeah, well, no wonder it's taken that long, because when you're starting there, yeah, for sure. Okay, I think we know this pretty well. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And I guess it's good to be the brother of our Deputy Defense Minister.
When the Deputy Defense Minister is your sister, something interesting happens. And I can tell you one thing that happens. If you're a startup, and I mean you don't really have a head office, you don't have a factory, you don't have a research lab, but you have a company, you registered a company. Anyone with $50 can go down to the corporate office and register a company. But when your sister is the Deputy Defense Minister, you get a private meeting with the Prime Minister. That's exactly what happened. The name of the company is Dominion Dynamics. Their chief lobbyist is the brother of the Deputy Defense Minister, who, in a separate matter, has already been censured by the Ethics Commissioner for cronyism. She got a job for her husband's cousin, who was unqualified as a manager for the Federal Public Service. He'd been working at a Good Life gym. So help me, I'm not making this up, Mike. And in this case, these characters got a private meeting with the Prime Minister of Canada, the leader of a G7 country, to discuss the technology of their drone factory that was not in production and did not have any drones. Mike, this is not, I'm not describing Zaire. This is on the level. This is how this town works. It's not about the politicians that you have to keep an eye on. It's the managers. And if you know a manager, it's like winning the Wheel of Fortune. All the doors swing open.
I can't help but think back, Tom, and I know this is going to get people's backs up at the very mention of this app, but ArriveCan, didn't we go through this just a few years ago?
And how? And to this day, the RCMP investigation is ongoing. I don't want to be gratuitously unkind, but the white-collar crime division at the RCMP is really a national joke, let's be frank. And the charges that will be pending, the search warrant and the raid of the company office of the lead contractor in a private home in Woodlawn, Ontario. Here we go. You can't get away with this at County Council, but they're doing it. That it was for fraud and overbilling. The investigation is still underway. There are lifetime bans issued, but Mike, I tell you, people don't like to think in our country that we have a petty corruption problem, and sometimes not so petty. But in the government of Canada, we do. This is a statement of fact. If you have a friend, life can be sweet.
It certainly can. All right, it's not exactly sweet these days for firearms owners. We hear from them frequently on the show, the buyback program from the feds, etc. But what should these firearms owners know right now about their so-called assault-style rifles, Tom?
The amnesty for ownership under penalty of prosecution, arrest and prosecution, originally scheduled for April 2022, has now been deferred again. It was supposed to be this Halloween. Now it's off indefinitely to 2027. The advocates of tighter controls have expressed displeasure with what they see as government indecision. What they won't accept is what ironically, the Department of Public Safety accepts internally. We've seen this in in-house research. This is the government's own research. And they've asked gun owners, they've been told over and over and over, even firearms owners, licensed, law-abiding, tax-paying people, have said, I don't even own one of these blacklisted firearms. You don't know what you're doing. What did the last internal research show? Firearms owners think inner cities have the highest rate of firearms violence in Canada. This is a public safety survey. Just 10% think small towns and rural areas have the highest rates. The biggest causes of gun violence are gang violence, organized crime, and general criminal activity, end of quote. That's why the gun buyback program and the amnesty period is simply not going anywhere, because you have hundreds of thousands of law-abiding people who say, I'm not going to play ball. And in some Western provinces, Crown prosecutors have said, yeah, we're not interested.
Not interested at all.
This has been a problem with firearms control this goes back 30 years. Cabinet will not accept that they have a problem with guns being smuggled across the border. They know it's there, but they won't stop it. Maybe it's hard to stop it, but government is hard, and they asked for the job. And so instead, you keep going back to the same source, the sports shooter, the hunter, over and over to fill out more forms and get more permits, pay more fees, while the gun crime in Toronto and Montreal and other large cities speaks for itself. Those people are not sports shooters, and Cabinet just won't deal with it. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, they can check the box. That's why.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, we've done
Correct.
Something on firearms, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I mentioned at the outset, Tom, how much I enjoy the work that you and the team at the Blacklocks Reporter do, and I know how carefully you source your stories and you are ensuring accuracy. I just want to make sure on this one now. Our federal housing advocate says we are going to meet the housing affordability target for Canadians in 1,000 years. Did you carry a one you shouldn't have carried, Tom?
Not a typo.
Oh,
absolutely.
My God.
This is Cabinet's advisor. This is not a gotcha moment. This is her annual report to Parliament. This is housing affordability for the people who are most hard up, the poorest income. But these are just wage earners. This is working poor. What did she say? I quote her accurately. Why characterize it when I can just read it? While Canada is committed to the right to adequate housing, current pace of building deeply affordable homes is so slow it'd take 1,000 years. End of quote. Onward and upward. Faster, higher, stronger, Mike.
Hang in there, though, Tom. Hang in there. Affordability.
I can't wait for 1,000 years. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, one more before I let you go, because I don't know if we have to call Scooby and the gang or who to investigate this, but how does $20 million worth of specialty medication just vanish into thin air?
Keep an eye on this one, Mike. This has been the subject of a closed-door meeting of the Commons Health Committee and much nervous testimony by managers of the Public Health Agency. Recall that's the same agency that had 2 Chinese spies working at the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg. Not my words, the words of the Security Intelligence Service. In this case, there was the loss of $20 million in biowarfare therapeutics. These are drugs really that are unobtainable on the internet. And there was a door that, this is the official version, if you can believe this. A door was left ajar on a freezer, and 20 million in biowarfare drugs were spoiled. Problem. There was a foreign national, this is on the record, was snooping around looking for addresses of warehouses, and MPs have asked, to the point that they can on the record, are you aware of foreign actors who wanted to know where the warehouses were, what specialty products they held, and why was there this mysterious loss? No comment. This is not good, Mike, but a good call, because there's something here, and everything comes out eventually.
We know you will be keeping your eyes on it as well as always. Tom, appreciate these chats. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter, Canada's only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. Online, you can get your subscription at blacklocks.ca. I'm just thinking on the firearms piece that we talked about, and the checking of the box, right? We know where the problem is, but if we just do this and give the impression that we are, or say that we are getting tough on gun crime, etc., then it's the easy box to check. It's the low-hanging fruit. And that's my take, if you'll allow for the connection to our pilot project here in the region, where we are banning right-hand turns on red lights. And I wrote about this week in the Waterloo Region Record, where I have a weekly column that gets published by the fine folks there. And I described our pilot project to ban right turns on red lights that very same way. It's the low-hanging fruit. We talk about road safety. And look, can we be clear? We do need safer roads. Specifically, I think what we need is for people who use the roads, primarily people who drive vehicles on the roads, to drive a whole lot more responsibly. Like, we frankly need that. Speeds are way too excessive. Stops are stoptional, apparently, right? Things like that. Distracted driving, impaired driving, don't even get me started on behaviors like that. We absolutely need safer roads. But the data that we are relying upon to launch this pilot project to ban right turns on red lights at a dozen intersections around this region. The most dangerous, if you want to call it that, intersection that will have the right turn on red light ban is Fairway and Wilson in Kitchener, where there are four collisions by right-turning drivers over a 5-year period. 4. And the data doesn't even tell us what color the traffic signal was when that right turn was being made, nor does it tell us, and there were only 4 collisions, for crying out loud. Surely we know what the cause of that collision was. Was it somebody crossing the street without paying attention or against the light? Was it the driver? We don't know in the data, but we should be able to learn. And yet that is the data upon which we make this decision to launch this pilot project. Frankly, I don't care. I really don't. If I can turn right on a red light or not. What I do care about is that we use evidence and data to base our decisions, to create policies. And for me, this is just, it's the lowest of the low-hanging fruit. And now Regional Council will check a box and say, see, we made the roads safer. Meantime, people are still racing on McQueen-Shaver Boulevard in Cambridge, aren't they? Like, we know where the real problems are, and yet we seem to nibble around the edges. We're going to put bollards in the middle of residential streets where there's never been a collision in the history of the street's existence, and that'll slow things down. That'll make things safer. What are we doing? What are we? Sometimes I wonder. I really, really do. Sorry, I was a bit of a tangent, but Tom made me think of that when we were talking about the assault-style rifles and the amnesty. And Western Canadian prosecutors won't even touch the cases right now on legal grounds. Interesting times indeed. Okay, a quick break. When we come back, it is that time of the day where we take a moment to remind you that not everyone is a jackwagon. And imagine going to the same street corner every day for 40 years. You'll hear that woman's story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In the next 40 minutes or so before 11 a.m., the community sing-along that you are invited to, and the Highwaymen Car Club hosting a show this weekend that we want you to know about. That's still to come. It is 10:22.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold and fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
Your daily reminder that indeed there is good in the world. A lot of it, let's be honest. We know the 80-20 rule, right? And when it comes to good people, I lean towards 85%, right? You might run in, if you encounter 100 people a day, 85 of them, maybe even more, are going to be sweet people. The other 15% you can just, not worry about. That's a them problem. And a reminder of the good in the world today comes from the corner of Wilson Avenue and Franklin Street in Kitchener. If you have been by that intersection at any point over the last 40 years, that's right, 40 years, the corner of Wilson and Franklin, either before or after school, you were very likely to encounter a young woman by the name, okay, she's 79 years young now, but by the name of Lorraine Deeth. Lorraine has been the crossing guard at that corner, helping get kids across Wilson Avenue to Wilson Avenue Public School for the past 40 years. And last week, Lorraine was recognized as Kitchener's crossing guard of the year. Hardly misses a day of work, says Student Transportation Services of Waterloo Region, and she has developed such close relationships with the kids that she helps cross and their families, a friendly and familiar face every day for the past 40 years. Imagine that. In fact, Lorraine Deeth has been doing this job for so long that she is now helping to cross the grandchildren of one of the students she had crossed over her last 40 years. Just let that sink in. That's how long she's been at it, from her late 30s now into her late 70s. Lorraine Deeth is the crossing guard of the year, thanks to Student Transportation Services of Waterloo Region. And with 40 years of service, I think we can understand why. Little bonus for you on the Not Everyone is a Jackwagon segment today. Apparently, Justine Fraser, who helps to produce this show, apparently she messed something up that nobody even, I didn't know she messed something up, but apparently she messed something up, so she brought coffee. So now I get a second cup of coffee today for free, which is one of my favorite kinds of coffee, right? FREE free. And I didn't even know that she screwed something up. She said to me, I thought you were going to be mad at me because I screwed up, so I brought you a coffee. Me? The only thing I'm mad at right now is the city of Kitchener and the lack of road paint, okay? That's what I'm mad at. Justine, no, but hey, I'll take the cup of coffee, and that makes you a non-jackwagon as far as I'm concerned. If you know somebody who fits the bill of not a jackwagon, we are always interested in learning about them. Drop me an email anytime, mike@570news.com, and maybe we will feature their story every day around 10:20. It's just worth the reminder that indeed there is good in the world. The Highwaymen Car Club is trying to make some good happen this weekend. We will tell you how after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I'm sure I've told you this before, but along with being a guy that sits on his derriere every day and talks, which does not take a lot out of you, trust me on that. But I'm a bit of a gearhead. I've loved cars my entire life. The first car that I ever bought was a classic Mustang, and I used to go to any and every car show I could find because, when you have a car like that, you want to show it off if you can. And I tried to do that as often as I could when I was a younger lad. So a real pleasure to be able to talk about the car show coming up this weekend, hosted by the Highwaymen Car Club. It's going to be happening at the Waterloo Rod and Gun. And here to tell us more about it, Jarrett Kipfer is with us. Good morning, Jarrett.
Good morning.
And Surf Cable with us also. Surf, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, Jarrett, let's start with the Highwaymen Car Club
Yes, sir.
itself. Tell me more about it.
It's been in place since 1962. Started with, I believe, Surf was one of the founding members.
No, I was just a little bit later than that.
Oh, okay. But a handful of fellows, same thing, interested in cars and the camaraderie and everything that goes along with it. And basically, we're meeting, regularly at somebody's basement, and one thing led to another, and now it's however many years later, and close to 40 members, and we have our own building on Lancaster Street. It used to be the St. Luke's Lutheran Church.
Old church, yeah. We're in an old church.
Old church, repurposed church.
Repurposed, yeah.
Is that at Lancaster and Bridgeport?
Lancaster and Bridgeport.
Right beside Golf's.
Yeah, okay, I got you. I got you, okay. Yeah. What was that first car, Surf, back in the early 60s?
My first car?
Yeah.
Was a 1932 Ford Roadster.
Really?
Yeah, metal flake green.
Love
445 Buick engine in it, nailhead. Yeah.
I was a Mustang, my first one. So you drove that to school?
And then I had a 33 Plymouth that I drove to school. Yeah, 324 holes in it. Yeah.
I love it.
I've always been a gearhead since I was about 16, ever since I got my license. Yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, and back down, where the office is now, you mentioned on Lancaster Street, not far from the old Bridgeport Speedway, and locals out there, right?
Yeah. A lot of action back then.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the graffiti car show coming up this weekend at the Waterloo Rod and Gun Club. What can you tell us, Surf?
Well, I think I just put the figures together and we just realized in my mind, I think this is our actual 50th time we've had graffiti. Would have been the 52nd, but we missed by COVID for 2 years, so we didn't have it. But I was looking back to 74 when we had our first one. Then I had it up the years. Oh, geez, this would be our 50th annual graffiti car show.
Amazing.
So, yeah, we first started at the Waterloo Regional Police Association building and went on from there.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Jarrett, what can we expect this Saturday?
Lots of cars, lots of people, lots of heat. Apparently, if you believe the forecast. But again, we usually have between 350 and 400 cars come. Again, we have a literal army of volunteers from the Make-A-Wish, from our good friend Ann Beam. Anybody who's been to a Rangers game will probably know her from in the hallway. Yes, her and her team are fantastic, and a significant amount of the proceeds that we generate from the show go to support Make-A-Wish and the wonderful work that they do. And we've been working with Anne and her team for 25
years
ish. Yeah. So it's just one of those weird things. I mean, we're all stressed leading up to the event, and her and her team comes in and just says, "Get out of the way. We got this." Right? So it's awesome. But lots of amazing cars and trucks, and our theme this year is regarding trucks. So we anticipate a larger turnout of pickup trucks and whatnot. So. But we have a live band called Double Impact. It's a duet, but they're going to be providing the entertainment. And we also actually have some help this year from KW Oktoberfest. They are providing a golf cart limo to help ferry people in and out of the Waterloo Rod and Gun Club because so many people do attend. Parking becomes scarce, and we got people parking all the way on Bodie Lane, so they've been gracious enough to offer that golf cart limo to ferry people back and forth.
They call it their people mover, and it's usually at the parades that they take it to, but they've kindly lent it to us for this event.
That's fantastic.
And one other thing we have also for this year, we have a feature vehicle coming to the show. Right. It's a 1948 Ford 1-ton tow truck that's customized. That's won numerous events as first place top show, best engineered, best paint, and it's going to be our feature vehicle this year at the show. And it was owned by and built by a man by the name of Bob Hilton, who unfortunately passed away this year, but his son Bruce and friends are bringing it out in honor of his dad, to our show. So we're happy to see this truck there because it's amazing to see.
It is incredible. And I'm just thinking back on the origins of the Highwaymen surf. And here we are now 50 shows later. But how do you get the word out to these automobile enthusiasts to have so many that are going to show up on Saturday?
Well, we go to all the events that we can, all the cruise nights that we can before the show. We probably start 3 or 4 months beforehand to put the word out. We have a Facebook page that we advertise on. We have flyers. We have word-of-mouth contact. Every media that we can, like even coming here today, helps us out.
We also have what I'd like to think are really good relationships with some of the other car clubs, Listowel Comancheros, for example, the Hellions out of Brantford.
Well, they've got groups all over Ontario. They're just a chapter.
Okay, gotcha. So, so we cross-pollinate with each other's groups, and it's funny because you all puns intended, the value of media these days. But, a vast majority of people that come to the show come there because they just know what's happening. It's always the weekend after, weekend before Father's Day.
Weekend before Father's Day.
The weekend before Father's Day. So, and again, because we've been doing it for so long, it's, I guess we kind of take it for a little bit for granted, but,
sure.
But no, we still try to do our best to make sure the word is out and that we talk to as many people as we can. And
there's like a camaraderie between clubs too. So you get to meet people 20 years ago that you still see again today, and it's you just get to renew old acquaintances and just carry on from there.
I'll bet you I mean, it's been a long time. It's been decades since I've been out of the classic car and car show game, but I'll bet you some of those same faces are still kicking around because those who love it really do love it.
They're in it for life, most of them. Yeah,
for sure.
One of our members, he is a machine. He actually just got inducted into the Canadian
Street Rod
Hall of Fame. His name is Chris Pomeroy, and I don't know where he gets his energy or his motivation from, but if he's put together one car, he's put together 20, and like top end finish. Fit and finish, and again, with all of us getting older, I mean, he's slowing down. I think he's probably down to about 2 or 3 cars a year. But,
well, what's funny is he's the son of one of our members, one of our longtime members,
founding members,
one of close to founding members.
Yeah.
And he even as a little child, when we were working in with his father's is Claire Pomeroy, Chris would be tagging along as a little youngster, walking around the garage, picking up tools, fetching tools, and just his mind would just pick up things and keep carrying it on. So that's how we try to get the young people involved too, just getting them involved in the sport.
All right, it is this Saturday at the Waterloo Rod and Gun Club. It's the 50th annual. We're going to call it Highwaymen Car Club Graffiti Show. Donation or admission is a donation to Make-A-Wish, so make a monetary donation to the Make-A-Wish Canada Foundation. What time do we get underway there, Jarrett?
Show cars start showing up anytime from 7:30, but registration officially opens at 8 and closes at noon. But the general public is welcome anytime.
Good. And you've got the entertainment with the live music and lots of fun there to look at all of those beautiful machines.
Runs till about 3 o'clock.
Okay. Guys, have a great Saturday, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Jarrett Kipfer, Surf Cable with us from the Highwaymen Car Club, their annual show in support of Make-A-Wish this Saturday at the Waterloo Rod and Gun Club. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Who doesn't love a good old sing-along? I know that you do it. You usually do it by yourself in the car. I see you. I see you in traffic. Sometimes we do it in the shower. But we want to sing along as a group with the Grand River Voices. Ada DeLeo joins me in studio, a member of those Grand River Voices. Ada, good morning.
Good morning.
And the music director of Grand River Voices, Gordon Wright, with us as well. Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning.
Tell me a little bit more, Gordon, about Grand River Voices and what this choir is all about.
Well, I'm actually pretty new to Grand River Voices. Just last September, my neighbor who's in the choir is on the board, and they were looking for a director, and we're kind of in a bit of a rebuild, and said, hey, would you like to, are you interested in this? And I came, and I just had lots of questions, but it turned out that they were looking for a director, and one thing led to another, and I found myself leading it. So
absolutely fantastic.
I have really enjoyed that. Started officially in December.
Okay.
And we had a concert in March, and I'm just so glad to be doing it.
Ada, how did you first get involved? Because you've been deeply involved in music locally for some time now.
I've been part of the choir for probably more than 10 years now. And then we took a forced break during COVID and have had a chance to revitalize. And Gordon has been an absolute delight to come back. And the Grand River Voices has been a part of the community for about 40 years now. So it's really made a difference, and some of our choir members have been around for more than 30 years. So, yeah, and it's just such a joyful place.
How did it all get started? Who's in the choir?
So it was started by Alfred Kuntz as Millennium Choral Organization, and it was two different choirs, Nith Valley Singers and Music Alive. And so when Alfred retired in 2014, then we became Grand River Voices and just became one choir. And so it's members of the community. It's people from all over the place and all different levels of talent. We are a no audition choir, so you just come in and do a voice check. And so we just make it a welcoming experience for everybody. And I know you certainly wouldn't get me to sing alone, but as part of a choir, it is a great experience.
What was it like for you, Gordon, as you began this journey as the music director for this choir?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't ever led a community choir before. I've led lots of sort of church choirs and been in choirs, but this was a totally different kind of experience, you know? And I think I wanted to kind of approach it. You know, people are busy, and you get home Wednesday night or whatever, and you've had a long day and supper, and you think, oh, do I need to go out tonight? Yeah, I guess I better. And then you get there. I wanted them to go home saying, I am so glad I came. And so for me, I just wanted to be part of something that was fun, and that was community, and that was just enjoyable to come to. And no matter whether you're really good at singing or you're just kind of learning, that you feel at home there. And so that's what we've tried to create.
I'm sure, Ada, after you finish a rehearsal putting on a show is something pretty special too, but you do leave with that feeling because there's just something about expressing oneself through song.
It's very true. No matter what is going on during the day or any sort of craziness that might be happening in life or at home, you do drop it all, and singing is, well, it's incredible for your mental health and your physical health. And I usually find myself leaving singing the songs. And then after a concert, it is inevitable that you're singing the songs for like a week afterwards. And it's just so much fun. And it makes you lighter. It just does so much good for your mental health.
What kinds of songs do you sing?
Oh, well, everything from like pop ballads. So some of our songs from this last season were, we did some Beatle
medley songs, of course, some Gordon Lightfoot, some Canadian content, of course.
Yep.
And then we ended with Dancing Queen, and pretty much everybody was up dancing by the end. And so lots of variety.
Yeah.
And then for a Christmas season, we usually mix of both secular and sacred song because it's just a great celebration at the holiday time, and try to bring other cultural influences in as well.
My wife had a good laugh at me, of course, a couple of weeks ago. I'm listening to every Christmas piece known to man in May.
Yes.
So that we can prepare for our fall season, right?
Of course. So how many shows per year are you putting on?
2 main shows,
okay.
And then we do some extra things. We actually sang at a Rangers game, which was fun, did the anthem there.
I remember that, yes.
And then the Waterloo Region event, and things like that. So.
Yeah, and we'd like to do more of that as well as we sort of build that capacity. And we love being able to go out to seniors' homes as well, where they may not be able to get out to our shows. So we've done a couple of those over the years as well.
Where did you first get the bug, Ada, the love of singing?
So, I was in high school musicals when, 100 years ago. And then I was looking for a choir, and a couple of friends of mine had suggested the Music Alive at that time. So it's like you said, we sing in the shower, we sing in the car. Why not sing with other people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for you, Gordon, because Ada mentioned that, anybody people of all experience levels, etc., are welcome to join, and then you, as a choir, you will work with them. As a director, you'll work with that entire choir. How is that process for you, given the various experience levels that you're encountering?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think you want to recognize that people actually sing usually better than they think they do. And you want to encourage them to find that they're actually able to do this. And so we start easy, and we start just sort of kind of opening up the vocal process and so on so that they can make a pleasant sound. And then, maybe sit them beside someone who knows it. Sometimes we'll work with them individually if they want. They can come sort of extra early to the piano and we'll go through a part. We have part recordings, so they just hear their specific part and can rehearse that at home and so on. So yeah, just talking about some sort of basic vocal techniques. So, I guess I can do this. We had one young man come, and honestly, the first practice, it was almost like he was shaking in the chair. And we had a karaoke last week, and sure enough, did he not sing My Way? Frank would have been proud. It was just so cool to see the progression from that first rehearsal to having the confidence to stand up in front of the whole choir, and everybody's cheering him on and stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of part of the reason we do it.
I love it. Frank would have been proud. Okay, Grand River Voices. It'll make sense to you that you can find their website, find them online, grandrivervoices.ca. But Ada, next week, a week today, is another tremendous opportunity for us to join you in a community sing-along.
That's right. We're hosting this community sing-along at Trillium Lutheran Church on Willow Street in Waterloo from 7 p.m. And it's just a chance to come out and sing along to some popular songs, so things that people know about from the 1950s to current, so that it's something for everybody. And then a chance to learn a song in 4-part harmony, so you can understand what that's like and just get that feeling of being in a choir. And then we're going to give people a chance to sign up for membership early and get a little bit of a discount on the price with an early bird special.
I love that. So always recruiting some new members.
Absolutely.
Always, yes.
Yeah. And if they come to that event, it's not like they're going to be locked in. They can come and just try it out, you know? And it's a little nerve-wracking to come for the first time. So this is sort of maybe an easy entrance. Come, just see, frankly, how enjoyable the choir is and what kind of a community it could be. So hopefully people will come, just have a good time, and then maybe decide to join us in the fall.
Approximately how many members do you have right now?
We had last season about 46 members, so we have an optimum range to about 60. We could host really well, and we'd really like to encourage men to come out as well, because I think men need that aspect of community as well and could really benefit from it, and a chance to sing along and experience that.
And to be clear, we have some. We just would like more.
Sure. And you know what? We get up to 60, all the more singers for Gordon to corral as the director.
Exactly. And he does it with an incredible amount of patience and just this fabulous dad energy is what I like to say.
Okay, so that is next Wednesday, 7 o'clock at Trillium Lutheran Church on Willow Street in Waterloo.
Yes.
Right on.
Grand River Voices, online, grandrivervoices.ca. Gordon Wright, the music director. Ada DeLeo, a member of the choir. Thanks for what you're doing. I hope we can recruit a lot of new voices, because I love the whole idea. So thanks.
What are you doing Wednesday nights?
I couldn't carry a tune if it had handles, Gordon, but if you're looking for a challenge, you might have just found one. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. This month of June is Seniors Month, and we are going to focus on that as we look at housing and housing affordability for the next little bit. Because when we talk about housing affordability, most often it seems we are talking about young people trying to enter the market. But what about the other end of that spectrum and older people trying to stay in that market, so to speak? Brian Paul is the Executive Director of Supportive Housing of Waterloo, or SHOW, and joins me in studio for a chat. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do we know about that other end of the spectrum, Brian, and seniors trying to hang on to the homes that they've long lived in?
So we're trying to break the myth that older adults are well off, that they have savings, that they have equity, that they are home free essentially when they reach a certain age, say 65. 35% of the older adults in our community are relying solely on CPP OAS. And with that, they are living off about $26,000 a year. That's over a third of the older adults in our community. So when you add that to the affordability crisis that we're in, lack of affordable housing, rising rents, the rising cost of food and maintenance, utilities, medications, that creates an environment where more older adults are experiencing homelessness than ever before. They are the fastest growing demographic in the shelter system, and 1/3 of our wait list is made up of individuals 50 plus.
So how do you as an organization at SHOW respond to that?
So we're trying to build as much new supportive housing as we can. It's a challenge because I can tell you that in 2018, our wait list was just under 200 people, and today it is at over 650 people. So it has really spiraled out of control. We saw an emerging crisis about 3 years ago with the rise of older adults experiencing homelessness. That was emerging, but we are actually in the crisis right now. So we're looking to actively build more, but it's just hard to bring new builds online quick enough to meet that rising need. And that's kind of where we're at right now today.
You said at the outset, Brian, trying to break the myth, and it's an important. I think that's the right word. This is an important myth to break, because I remember having a conversation about free transit for seniors, something that I am very supportive of, and I'm glad we're going to pilot it, which is great. But somebody had come up to me in opposition and said, "Why would you advocate for that? Seniors are the wealthiest demographic we have. They're sitting on piles of money."
I delegated a few times at council to have that initiative, that pilot start, and I heard it during the delegations. I had people coming up to me after speaking and saying, "I had no idea. I had no idea that this was an issue." Since 2021, the number of older adults on our wait list over the age of 60 has increased by 400%. So we're here to tell people, to say, this is the reality in 2026. It is a myth. It's there's that sort of perspective or stereotype that older adults are flourishing, and we're here to say that it is not the case.
So beyond the work that you do at Supportive Housing of Waterloo or SHOW to try to fill in some of these gaps, it sounds to me like more needs to be done, perhaps even on the policy side. Any traction in that regard?
We're trying. I think the situation we're finding ourselves in, as well as other providers are, is that there seems to be some capital dollars available to build. The challenge is for individuals who've been on the streets for years at a time, the trauma, abuse, and neglect that comes with that, they're going to not just need the affordable housing piece, they're going to need the intensive supports that comes with it. The challenge is you can build the building. That's still hard to do, but there's capital. That's the bricks and mortar. But how do you run it? How do you provide the operations, the staffing, the support, the programs that are going to help these individuals really flourish? And that's sort of the chicken and egg, the catch-22 we're kind of caught in right now, where we can work towards building it, but what happens on day two? After that ribbon is cut, what are we going to do? If we don't have the staff to provide the supports and services our residents deserve and need.
You have a new project, a 10-unit modular project in Waterloo. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we're working on a 10-unit infill project, meaning it is built on existing property at 360 behind 362 Herb Street West, which is at Herb just before Fisher Hallman. And we're utilizing our existing land, so we don't have to get into bidding wars with developers or anything like that. Let's utilize the land we have and let's build on it. We're working with a builder in Brantford, so it is going to be the first modular build in the city of Waterloo. And with that, with modular comes speed. So in a perfect world, if we were to get the capital dollars, the 3.3 for that over the next little bit, in a perfect world, you could have residents living in it by the end of the year. And that's why modular is so exciting for us, is that let's get this out the door. We have a pipeline of projects that show we see this as the first step. Let's get this thing going, get 10 older adults off the streets, out of the shelters, out of the encampments, get them into housing, rebuild their lives, and then work on the next and the next and next.
What about the human resources capacity within show? How do you, what are you doing for day two, to use the language you used earlier?
You talked about policy.
Yeah.
So I would say there's a lot of negotiation, a lot of advocacy going on right now with us and the province, trying to secure those operational dollars needed. It has not... One thing we don't want to do at that build is to have it all be the burden of existing staff, because it's on the same site, to run that building. And we also don't want to compromise the type of resident we're housing, meaning if we don't have the staff, it would have a potentially negative effect on the type of resident we could house, meaning we couldn't take the hardest to house, which is what we do at show. Maybe we'd have to take someone with lower needs who needs less intensive support. We are funded to provide housing for those with the highest level of need, and we want to continue to do that. But that's the challenge, going back to what you said about policy, is creating a framework, a structure in which not just show, but all supportive housing providers are able to provide the services our residents need.
How does show operate its buildings? 362 Herb West, you mentioned, close to Fisher Hallman, and the other is at Urban Moor, if I'm not mistaken.
That's 144 Herb Street East, and that's our, we call it supportive housing for older adults. So it's a building dedicated just to older adults, and is the only building in the region of Waterloo providing supportive housing just dedicated for older adults. And then we have what we call graduated living at 402 Herb Street West, which is for residents who no longer need the intensive supports, so we don't even have staff there. So it's almost like an opportunity for those who don't need to live in a supportive environment. Once they've moved through and are well enough, they can move there.
So what is life like in one of those buildings? What supports does show make available? How do you operate them?
So support is, it's not a checklist that we use. It really is geared, specific, unique to each individual person, their own needs, their own goals. We empower them from day one, which is something they've not had the ability. They have not felt any power for years at a time. They've been told to move on, that they can't stay here, that they don't even have the ability to change the channel on their TV. So right from the get-go, we ask them, what do they want? Do they want to get reconnect with friends, with family, go back to school, get a job? Often what they want when they come to show is to sleep. They want to rest. And that takes time. I think providing an environment where people can learn to trust again is something that takes years sometimes for some residents. And through that process, we are there to support and guide them. But again, we're not walking in there with a binder full of things that we're going to, today you're working on this and this and this. No, we want to encourage them to rebuild their lives and live independently.
I remember some time ago reading something that said Canada does not have an aging population. It has an aged population. And that has stuck with me for the years since I read it. And we know, I mean, we are getting older. We're getting older quick. Baby boomers have reached that 80-year-old plateau now, et cetera. So we know that the demographic, the population is aging, and you've shared the statistics as to what you're seeing in the supportive housing space. How optimistic are you that we're going to get a handle on this?
I'm optimistic, but I also need to be a realist. So I think organizationally what we do is we try to let people know exactly, we're aware of what's happening. We're not here to sugarcoat anything. But we also need to provide a semblance of hope. And we are optimistic that we can do this. I mean, we are so lucky to be in this region. The community is so incredibly generous and caring and empathetic. And we do feel organizationally, we do feel wind at our sails, that we do have the support of our community. And that's a huge step. To know that you feel supported, that you're not in an environment where you're constantly walking through mud organizationally and everything you do is a grind. When we are looking to build, the questions are, can you go bigger? So, I mean, that's a huge part to play, because the grinding work of getting new builds going takes years. Some of the projects we're working on, and we're like in year 4 of them. So we just need to keep going. But so it's being real, understanding the issues, but also providing a semblance of hope, not just for our residents, but to the community, saying, we've got this. We have a model of care that works. Let's continue to invest in this. Let's not turn away from this, because I can tell you there's a lot of news about the encampments. My response to that is, if you want to clear those encampments and get people out of those encampments and off the streets, supportive housing is how you're going to do it. So we need to reinvest and be invigorated enough to invest in supportive housing as a solution, because it really is a solution.
You mentioned that modular build on the land you already have on Herb Street West and could, if all goes well, house people by the end of the year. What needs to happen in order for that to happen?
So it is a $3.3 million project. We are just about halfway there, and we would need to have the funds secured in order to break ground. So we got a really significant investment from the region of Waterloo, $1.1 million, which we're grateful for. And we're in the quiet phase of the capital campaign, meaning we're not super public about it. There's a landing page talking about the project at showwaterloo.org, and people can find out more information about it there. But we need to shore up that funding right now. And then once we do, you can do all the servicing, all of the foundational work while the units are being built in the factory. And to be clear, this is not transitional. It's modular, but it's permanent housing. We are creating 10 new permanent housing units for older adults.
Showwaterloo.org. Let's check out the information that's there, and let's break the myth that seniors are sitting on piles and piles of money, because we're seeing the statistics are telling us a much different story. Brian, keep up the great work. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Brian Paul is the executive director of Show Supportive Housing of Waterloo. We'll get to your calls after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Since 2021, the number of older adults on our wait list over the age of 60 has increased by 400%. So we're here to tell people, to say, this is the reality in 2026. It is a myth. There's that sort of perspective or stereotype that older adults are flourishing, and we're here to say that it is not the case.
Brian Paul is the executive director of Supportive Housing of Waterloo, or SHOW. Visit the website showwaterloo.org to learn more about the work they do and are continuing to do. A 10-unit modular build is underway. They're about halfway, quietly, to their capital fundraising goal. But the idea here that really catches my attention as we are into Seniors Month is this myth, right? And it's one of the fastest growing demographics we are seeing within our shelter system, older adults. I hear stories all the time about multi-generational homes because parents are moving into their kids' houses when they can no longer sustain themselves. This is a real thing. And just to go back to something I said when talking to Brian, I read it some years ago now, but it has stuck with me. We are not just an aging population in Canada. We are aged. We are there. We're older. And in a lot of ways, older adults are doing more things than they ever have before. In other ways, they're struggling more than they ever have before. What is it that you're seeing out there on the seniors end of the housing spectrum? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Start with Mike, Farwell's Force, member number 37. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mike. Greetings from a foggy Point, Clark. What I'm seeing from my perspective is what you just mentioned. A lot of seniors are moving in with their kids. When a parent dies, the pension's gone. They only have Canada Old Age Pension. They're moving in with their kids. In my volunteer work that I do up here in the Bruce County, I see a lot of seniors at food banks. I see seniors moving in together, like a couple high school friends, because they can't afford the rent. And if you're charging like $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment, there's no way in heck you can live alone with dignity. The other problem I see, Mike, which really, really drives me nuts, is the fiscal irresponsibility of our municipal councils. when you're on a fixed income, you cannot afford tax increases double the rate of inflation year after year after year. And this, I believe, sometimes is forcing people out of their homes because basically they can't afford the increase in electricity, they can't afford the increase in taxes, and I think the city of Waterloo is one of the prime offenders of this, where they keep, having double-digit tax increases, and I'm scratching my head and going, for what? I think the man from Show and everybody else who is involved in the volunteer types of things are doing their best efforts. But I agree with you. Some of us retired well, but a lot of us did not. And it's just become unaffordable with taxes, paying rent, and everything else that's going ahead. And I'd like to see a little bit more responsibility and some more grants coming down from our provincial governments to help, and the federals to help with this matter. Because basically, Mike, you can't survive on $2,600 a month when apartment rents are going from $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Some of the seniors don't have kids and their families that they can turn to, and they're out on the streets. And that's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike. I appreciate the call and the perspective. And look, we heard about it on the show yesterday when we were talking about the number of notices the city of Kitchener had to send out for folks that are behind already this year on their property taxes. And what we heard is, in some cases, when you consider all of the other increasing costs, property taxes are contributing to pricing people out of their homes. I've heard this, albeit anecdotally, around the region. I can no longer afford to live here. Is there some responsibility on the part of municipal governments to keep their tax increases and, by extension, spending in check? Yes. Is that the only contributing factor? Of course not. Here's another, albeit anecdotal, story my beloved shared with me last evening, because something else we talked about on the show yesterday is the development proposal at the Krug Street Plaza. Now, the Krug Street Plaza right now is anchored by a gaming center where you can play bingo. They've got a convenience store in there. And that convenience store, which has been there for as long as I can remember, is one that my beloved used to frequent. And she told me the story last evening of this elderly woman who worked full-time at that convenience store, a woman in her 70s, and she lived right across the street, right across Krug Street, where there are already a number of triplexes, sixplexes, whatever. That's what's being proposed at the Krug Street Plaza right now. 4 6-story apartment buildings on the site of the plaza. But my beloved asked the question, what happens to that woman, that older woman who's working full-time in this convenience store that will likely disappear when the apartment buildings are built there, if this development moves forward? She lives across the street from her place of work. She lives in an apartment. Clearly she's working because she needs the money to pay the bills at the apartment. If the job disappears because they redevelop that plaza, this older woman becomes one who falls through the cracks. These are the unintended consequences of the progress we are in the midst of. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then the state of the city of Kitchener has been delivered by our mayor, and he will join us next to share his vision for the city. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, you just heard Matt make reference to it in that update. It was discussed throughout all news mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas. It is the City of Kitchener's State of the City address from Mayor Barry Verbanovic. The address yesterday afternoon, and Mayor Verbanovic joins the show this morning to go into some greater detail. Mayor Verbanovic, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I am still great. Still coming off that high from a week ago yesterday as we were both downtown celebrating our Rangers Memorial Cup victory. I mean, it was just such an electric evening, and we were even able to include a few of the B-roll shots in our council video in the State of the City speech yesterday.
Oh, I love it. And when you said coming down from the high, it's kind of funny because I was going to ask if you had come down from yesterday. I mean, it must feel, somewhat uplifting to be delivering a State of the City address. They're typically filled with positive news and positive ideas. What's it like doing that?
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, it certainly was a pleasure to present the final one for this term of office on behalf of council. It really was a reflection of, what we've accomplished, not just in the past year, but during this past term, and while also acknowledging, the realities of some of the challenges that our city and our world is finding themselves in, and how as a city we continue to work together as a council and staff team to tackle those.
Your address yesterday broken down into three key themes, if you will, looking at the future of the city of Kitchener, one of them being housing infrastructure and future-focused planning. I heard some great buzz, to be honest with you, Mayor Verbanovic, about what you're doing, particularly on housing and affordable housing. But where do you see the city of Kitchener excelling in this regard?
Yeah, so, as you might recall, Mike, because we talked about in the past, a few years ago, Council approved its Housing for All strategy, and it was really carving out a space for the city of Kitchener in terms of the housing continuum, but particularly the affordable housing space, and what were the things that we could do in an environment such as ours within a two-tier system where, the region is the primary housing services provider and housing services manager for all affordable housing in the community. The reality is that we've seen federal and provincial governments make some of their funds available exclusively to the region, some to the municipality, and so we've really focused on where are the spaces that we can do without duplicating any efforts, and so we have done that, and I'm pleased to say that over the last few years, particularly since 2023, we've seen more than 17,000 homes approved in the community. We've ensured that our approvals are going much faster. In fact, we've improved by over 80% in terms of the amount of time it takes to approve something like a site plan application, and that ultimately means that builders can get building quicker. It brings the cost of building down, and so on. But the really, big piece of news for me has been that we've seen us move forward in partnership with community organizations on 11 affordable housing projects in the community that are providing more than 400 units and have seen an investment from the city of approximately $59 million, which I think really speaks to this council's commitment to doing our part in this space.
You talk about your part, and I wonder about that, particularly in housing, because there seems to me to be outside forces at play here, including, of course, provincial forces, regulations, things like that. How do you navigate those waters and focus on just what the city can control?
Yeah, so, listen, I mean, obviously there have been changes during this term of council. As you know, planning authorities, for example, have moved exclusively from a two-tier system to seeing everything move to the area municipalities. And the area municipalities, I think, have, stepped up and risen to that occasion. We're just in the midst of doing our first new official plan. It'll be ratified by the end of the month. Council considered it at committee last week. We'll be the first municipality in the region to have done that since the transfer of planning responsibilities to us. I mean, it obviously takes some navigation and also some ability to be responsive. As you know, the province just recently with the feds announced the opportunity for municipalities to access some funding, but that is subject to us reducing some of our development charges. one of the challenges in the model that has been brought forward has been that our development charges compared to others, let's say in the GTA, have been quite low. And while some in the GTA have talked about or even have reduced theirs by 50%, they're still higher than what ours have been at 100%. So it's you're not comparing apples to apples, and that creates some challenges for us because the infrastructure costs of building are certainly not double in the GTA than they are here, as an example. But our teams have been working on that, and we're looking to be in a position to respond in time for the potential application that we might submit to the province to be part of the newly announced program, just as one small example of that.
One of the other themes from your State of the City address yesterday was a thriving local economy. And this, again, to me, is something where I don't know how you avoid the headwinds nationally or provincially when it comes to economic indicators, but how do you keep the local economy thriving?
So this is something that we've been working on, for some time. Coming out of COVID, we introduced our updated economic development strategy, Make It Kitchener 2.0, that's guided us over the last few years. And one of the big things that came as an early success out of that strategy was the U of W Innovation Arena in downtown Kitchener, which, as you know, is focused on medical and health innovation. But all startups, in fact, UW Velocity has moved into that space. As well as Mix is doing some work, and the Small Business Center. That is something we want to continue to focus on. But Council in the coming weeks in June will actually be considering Make It Kitchener 2.1, an update to that economic development strategy, responding to some of the changes that we've seen in the last little while, and looking at things like the growth in artificial intelligence as an example, and how we make sure that we capitalize on the existence of our post-secondary institutions here and grow that as an example. We know that the federal government is investing significantly in defense, partially in relation to our NATO commitments, partially in terms of protecting our own sovereignty. And there's opportunities for companies in Kitchener and throughout Waterloo region in that space. And so that is part of the work that we're doing as well, and recognizing that small businesses in general continue to be really an area of focus for more and more people, particularly some of the new Canadians who are arriving in our community and who often have an entrepreneurial spirit that comes with them, that comes with making the choice to be an immigrant, and you're often a little more of a risk taker, and we see many of our new businesses that are actually started by those new residents in our community.
New Canadians, an excellent segue, because I was thinking about that under the third theme with community infrastructure, health, and specifically belonging. And listen, Mayor Verbenovich, this ain't the Kitchener you and I grew up in, and that's not a bad thing, but how do we ensure this city continues to serve all of its residents?
Well, one of the things that you'll recall when I started out as mayor early on was our focus on Love My Hood. In fact, you were one of the co-chairs of it, and that program has really taken off over the years, both in terms of the over 200 community grants that we've been able to issue over the past 8 or 9 years, or maybe a little longer since that program has been in place. Our Neighbors Day and the music concerts that happen, that'll be coming up in a couple weekends on June the 20th. And all of these things are meant to bring people together, whether it's the people on your street or the people in your neighborhood, however you define neighborhood. It's an opportunity for people to get to know each other and do more things in that regard. And one of those things is also looking at how sport connects us. And I talked a little bit right at the beginning of our discussion today about the memories of last week with the Rangers, and we know that if there's one thing that's united this community in the last year, it's been the Ranger season, and particularly their playoff run, and that's created a real awesome sense of community pride that's been wonderful. And one of the things we announced in the State of the City yesterday was a new partnership with the Canadian Tire Jumpstart Foundation as well as Keep Sport. And it's these new sport lockers. We're going to have 30 of them in 27 different parks throughout the city that will have sporting equipment in them: volleyball, soccer balls, basketballs, exercise equipment, all available for free. You'll be able to access it through an app on your phone and access the equipment and then return the equipment when you're done. And it's really designed to add a new layer of making sport an activity, a way to connect people, make it affordable so that nobody's ever watching on the sidelines because they can't afford their own equipment. And we're able to do this, thanks to the generosity of the Canadian Tire Jumpstart Foundation, without any cost to taxpayers. And I would be remiss if I didn't just give a brief shout out to Kitchener-Conestoga MP Tim Lewis, who actually introduced me to the folks at Jumpstart and Keep Sport. And here we are, a couple months later, making this announcement, which is just awesome.
I love that program. I love the whole idea behind it. I think it's great. Just before I let you go, it was something that was also discussed during All News Mornings this morning with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, and that was your intentions perhaps for a fourth term as mayor. I know what you said this morning during All News Mornings, but maybe I thought you wanted to break the news on the Farwell show. I'm not sure. Intentions for 2026, Mayor Verbanovic?
Well, Mike, what I will tell you is when the time comes, I'll be happy to break it on your show. But what I said to Mark yesterday, and I really do feel strongly about this, there is some significant work to still be done this month. And once you make that announcement, the focus moves away from the work that in fact we were elected to do last term, and that's things like getting that official plan through, dealing with the regional water issue, monitoring the ongoing construction of the Cowan Rec Complex, which is the biggest project in the city's history and will be opening up later this year. And once we're done this sort of legislative session in June, you can expect that I'll be making my intentions for the future known certainly well before the deadline.
All right. You can expect that I will continue to be nosy in the meantime.
More than fair. That is more than fair.
Mayor Verbanovic, appreciate your time on the show. Thanks for being here this morning.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much.
Barry Verbanovic is the mayor of the city of Kitchener, following up on his State of the City address yesterday. You get the goods here on the program this morning. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Don't call me Tom Brady ever, because my clock management is terrible. But we are making time, I hope enough, for our good friend Sherry Roberts, who's the Ward 5 councillor in the city of Cambridge. And Sherry is here to talk to us this morning about Goose on the Grand, which is coming up this weekend in the city. Sherry, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, but I feel bad for keeping you waiting. I'm so sorry. I'm behind my time.
That's okay. No problem. Always happy to chat with you.
Well, you're always very kind. Goose on the Grand this weekend at Mill Race Park. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the Goose on the Grand is a really exciting event that's coming up on Sunday, June 14th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So this is sort of the culmination of many years of work. There's been a group of volunteers who have been working tirelessly on our placemaking working group to come up with an event that's also going to leave some beautiful pieces of art behind. So it's going to be a great event. We're going to have music and food, entertainment for everyone, but also the placemaking piece is we're going to be having these beautiful, almost 5 foot tall fiberglass geese that are being painted by local artists. 5 of them will be unveiled at the event. They've been sponsored by local community partners and businesses. And then throughout the summer, we're going to continue to see more and more of our geese pop up throughout the community. And then people can go around, check out the different geese, visit our businesses, things like that. It's just, it's going to be a really wonderful day.
Why is placemaking so important to you?
Yeah, I think placemaking is, a lot of people don't really know what it means, but to me it means bringing something special to a place that's maybe just a little bit regular. So you think about some of the placemaking initiatives we have already in our community. So something like the Galtway that connects Main Street to Water Street and to the Dixon Street lot. So it could be just a regular alleyway, but it's now filled with beautiful art and images and lights, and it's a place where you can go and actually spend time. So I think that we have such a beautiful city, and we have so much opportunity to bring people out to these different spaces and explore our community, and placemaking can be a big part of that.
So these geese will be spread out throughout Cambridge in the weeks and months ahead?
Exactly, yes. So the 5 that we're starting with are primarily in the downtown, like Galt core. So you'll see them pop up at places like Collective Arts and the Gaslight. There's one going at the Farmers Market. A number of other places happening initially, those first 5, but then there's another 7 that we're going to see coming throughout the summer and popping up. And keep an eye on our city website because we're going to have a map on there so folks can know exactly where to go to check out all the different geese.
All right, that website, cambridge.ca, and Goose on the Grand this weekend also features, I don't know if this frightens me or amuses me, the 18-foot inflatable goose, and we'll have the rubber duck race as well.
Yes, I'm so excited. Actually, the goose is adorable, Mike. So we blew it up in City Hall in the big atrium there and had a chance to look at it, and it's very cute. I'm trying to clean up the gooses, sort of their how people feel about them because not everyone loves the geese, but I think that we're going to feel a lot better about geese after this weekend. And yes, the duck race. I'm really excited about this. There's going to be 1,400 little ducks that are going to be floating down the river and then captured safely at the other end. This is being put on by our Rotary group here, our Rotary Club. And so there's still ducks able to be purchased. So if people are interested in participating in that, there's some really wonderful prizes. First prize is $2,500. And then half of the money is going to be going to a local charity. So via the Rotary Club. So I'm really excited about everything that there is. There's literally something for everyone. There's music. There's going to be a mother goose there reading stories to the children, an art opportunity. There's an artist there that's going to be leading folks through a painting project. So something for everyone.
What do we have to do to be involved in this? It's on Sunday, Mill Race Park. Is there a cost? What time? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, so it's free for anyone to attend the actual event. Everything is free. The only thing that has any cost associated with it is the duck race. So if you want to purchase tickets, you can do so online. If you go on to, again, the City of Cambridge website, search Goose on the Grand, there's a link there that will take you to the Rotary page where you can purchase your ducks. But if you want to come out for any of the free stuff, everyone is welcome to just come. And anytime between 11 and 3, come hang out. There's going to be something going on at all times.
Look forward to it. I hope we have great weather and it'll make for another great event in the city of Cambridge. Sherry, thank you very much for joining the show this morning.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sherry Roberts is the Ward 5 councillor in the city of Cambridge. It is Goose on the Grand this weekend at Mill Race Park, 11 until 3. That rubber duck race will get underway at 1. And really, this placemaking idea of the geese that will be unveiled, 4 of them about 5 feet tall, so they're about a Farwell high, will be unveiled on the weekend. But then there will be more spread out through the city. And I'll tell you this for free. I am a big fan of these placemaking initiatives. Wasn't it Moose in Toronto all those years ago? I'm pretty sure that it was. But I love these things that just add some vibrancy to an otherwise dreary area at times. I think it's great. So all taking place this Sunday, Mill Race Park, 11 till 3 in Cambridge. All right, an update from the 570 News Center, and then I'm sure you've got something to say. That's why we give you the last hour of the show every day. Talkback begins next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. All right, that update has got me fired up. Thanks a lot, Hutch. Okay, I'm not blaming Hutch. It was actually Brent Cater in the traffic update. Homer Watson Boulevard, you say. I'll get to that in just half a moment. But going back to Kyle's call before the update, we ran very short of time. Who owns Highway? He called it 86 because Kyle must be an old soul. It used to be 86. Now it's 85 through the region. 86 is the road that takes Kyle to his home in Listowel. Anyway, I am almost positive that the entirety of Highway 78, which turns into Highway 85, is provincially operated and or managed. I think there might be a section that regional police help to patrol as opposed to OPP. I can't be positive, but I'm almost certain that the entirety of Highway 85 south and northbound and Highway 78 east and west is provincial jurisdiction. So if you hit a pothole like Kyle did on our expressway, or the Conestoga Parkway, as some of us old fogies will call it, then the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, the MTO, is where you want to go. As for the potholes themselves, I have zero doubt that there are crews working on them every single day still. You just don't see the crews where you are, perhaps. But don't even get me started with the annual game that is the pothole slalom, right? Year after year after year after year, they continue to pop up. And I'm rather astounded, if I'm being honest with you, that we haven't figured out a way to better surface our roads so that potholes are less frequent. Like, for the life of me, I can't understand that. We put people on the moon. Heck, we've built an international space station, but we can't create a better road surface to prevent potholes? Come on with your coming on. To the thing in the update that got me fired up, Brent was talking about a collision at the Homer Watson and Ottawa roundabout, which is not uncommon. Homer Watson and Ottawa as an intersection, a signalized intersection, was always a problem. Then comes the roundabout. But let's go further down Homer Watson. I guess we'd call it south, towards Homer Watson and Blockline by St. Mary's High School and the roundabout that is there. It replaced that roundabout, a signalized intersection that, as far as I could tell, was not really much of a problem. Lots of students, sure. Did they cross the road when the signal allowed? Yes, et cetera, et cetera. And now that roundabout at Homer Watson and Blockline has had all sorts of enhanced safety measures applied to it because we are creating, or we have created, a monster, quite frankly, on Homer Watson. Over a 5-year period, almost 500 crashes at Homer Watson and Blockline, including 90 of them in 1 year. It regularly tops our traffic reports in the region, Homer Watson and Blockline, as the intersection or the roundabout with the most collisions. And there is a social cost to this that the region itself estimates. This factors in property damages, injuries to human beings, and that social cost is in excess of $250,000. It remains a going concern. And yet, again, think about this, 490 crashes over 5 years at Homer Watson and Blockline. But what are we doing to improve road safety? We're banning right-hand turns on red lights. Let's just let that sink into your brain for a second here, okay? We are so concerned about road safety in the region of Waterloo that we're going to ban right-hand turns on red lights at an intersection that has seen 4 right-turning collisions in 5 years. 4! But at the roundabout, where there have been 490 collisions, it's okay. Every man, woman, and child for themselves out there. What are we doing? What are we doing? If we're serious about road safety, and that was a mess we created ourselves, by the way. When Homer Watson and Blockline was a signalized intersection, it did not see near the same number of collisions. We put it in a roundabout and look at the problem we created. But that's okay. When we ban right-hand turns on red lights, everything's going to be fine. That's what the region wants you to believe. They're checking the box, making roads safer. Back to the phones here on Talkback. Bill is with us. Good afternoon, Bill.
Yes, good afternoon. I understand the Premier thinks that we should pay for all the maintenance for the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardner Expressway instead of just the City of Toronto people that use it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's a little bit unfair to the City of Toronto, isn't it?
Well, they're the ones that are using it. We're not driving on it every day, are you?
No, I hear you. And yeah, I can understand that frustration, Bill, although I think that's like an awfully big nut for the City of Toronto to have to deal with on its own.
Well, I guess that's where we disagree then.
No, that's fair. I get it. And listen, it's not new information, right? The provincial government uploaded the costs of the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardner some time ago, right? To help ease the financial burden on Toronto. And look, if the province would like to upload some of the costs for shelter and housing in this region, I mean, I'm sure we're listening, by all means. I get where you're coming from, Bill. I really don't know how to square that circle. I'm no fan of Toronto. I try to avoid going to the city if I can. The traffic is just such a nightmare. I just don't find it. There's hardly entertainment enough in the city of Toronto for me to go through the hassle of getting there. So I do it very infrequently. But I don't know. I don't know how a municipality on its own could possibly be expected to manage highways of that size on their own. But that's just me. I take your point, and we can have a different point of view on it, and that's what makes Talkback go round. Glenn is next, Farwell's Force, member number 363. Good afternoon, Glenn.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good.
Good.
I have a little story.
Okay.
That might solve the road problem. I lived in Owen Sound.
Okay, which road problem are we solving? Hang on, which one?
The potholes and breaking up and
potholes.
all that.
Yep.
I lived in Owen Sound for 6 years, 30 years ago. And they did a mile and a half patch of road between Owen Sound and Meaford out by the Billy Bishop Airport. You know where I am?
Yep.
And what they did, and it was an experiment, and what they did is they took old car tires and shredded them up and mixed them in with asphalt. And do you know, and I've gone and looked pretty near every year since they did it, and the road is as good now as it was the day they put it there. It's awesome. It doesn't break up. It can heave up and down with the frost, and it just bends. It doesn't break. So it's awesome. I thought maybe it would be slippery when it rained. It's not. And the thing is just awesome. So maybe we need to look at something like that around here and solve the rubber tire problem as well. That's all.
Okay.
Have a good day. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate the call. The rubber tire problem is a growing problem, by the way, lest you'd forgotten, because the province changed the rules on tire recycling, and now the companies that do the recycling have too many. Like, nobody's accepting the tires anymore. We've got a big mess. Tires are piling up at retailers' places because they can't get them out the door to the recyclers. Like, the province definitely created a problem when it comes to tires. So Glenn is suggesting that let's use those tires like they used them on that experiment up Owen Sound Way and use them for road resurfacing. I have to assume that the cost of doing something else for our road surfaces makes it prohibitive. That's the only answer I can come up with. But at the same time, I cannot wrap my head around the idea that we think it makes sense to continually repeat the same process. Pave a road, patch a pothole. Pave a road, patch a pothole. Every spring, it's the same damn thing. Surely there is a better way. At least we could look at the numbers. Somebody give us an idea here. We're paying this much to resurface the road. It would cost us this much. But much like the electric vehicle argument, you're paying more up front, but how much are you saving down the road? I find it, if I don't laugh, I'll cry. Because it's the same story every spring. Well, you know, the frost and gets under the road and the freeze-thaw cycle, I get it. I've heard it thousands of times over decades. Why haven't we changed our approach to surfacing or resurfacing the roads? I don't get it. But what do I know? I just sit here and talk to you for 4 hours a day. And we continue doing that on your Talkback Hour. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Right back to the phones here on Talkback. Rudy is with us. Good afternoon, Rudy.
Yeah, good day, Mike. This is the time I get in my car and go home. That's why I call it this time. But the tire thing, they did that years ago in lots of places with the rubber. But I think they stopped doing it because all the steel-belted tires later on. And that's a lot harder to grind up than it was with just plain rubber tires. But, yeah, I read years ago they did that in a lot of places. It worked pretty good, but the tire industry changed somewhat. And I'm thinking that's why they didn't do it anymore.
There you go. Rudy, I appreciate it. I mean, I still want to come back to where there's a will, there's a way. Are we still looking for better ways of surfacing or resurfacing our roads? Are we looking at better ways of just patching the potholes, period? Because they keep coming up and they keep coming up and they keep coming up. But there you go. From Glenn to Rudy with what was happening and why it might not be happening anymore. Chris is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good day, Mike. I'm calling in regards to your pothole situation as well.
All right, let's hear it.
So back in the day, I've done asphalt most of my life, and back in the day, the asphalt was a lot better. Like, there was a lot of better chemicals that made better binders and kept the asphalt together. But with all the environmental and stuff, they got rid of a lot of that stuff that actually made the asphalt strong, right? As well as we also get, like, a lot of traffic on our roads now, so it beats it up a lot more. Like, if you got your driveway done, you'd probably have to be off of it for, like, a day or two so they could set up a lot better, where we open roads right away and allow traffic on, which doesn't give it the proper compaction of the road itself.
That makes a ton of sense to me, both of those things, Chris. And you know, the wear and tear, given the volume of traffic, for sure. I'm just curious, though, why then we just haven't come up with something better today?
Yeah, I totally agree. I wish there was, like, a better method to actually filling potholes, like, as well. Like, I know that you can't close every road and just say, hey, okay, let's redo everything from scratch. But, yeah, there is probably a better way. Like, a lot of them are a lot surface. It's really hard to do, like, surface asphalt. If you can dig them a bit deeper, you can put more material in there, which gives it more strength and longevity.
Chris, really appreciate the call. Thanks for weighing in today.
No problem. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. It reminds me of something I saw, and I'll never find it again because I probably do too much scrolling on social media. But just I feel these are similar lines because I just keep saying, like, surely there's a better way. You know, this high-speed rail fantasy we're back into, right? And the feds have even put money into like a feasibility study, right? And, of course, it's only going to go from Toronto to Montreal to start. But anyway, it's a fantasy. It's kind of like all-day two-way go or a new Highway 7 from Kitchener to Guelph, the high-speed rail fantasy in Canada. But somebody posted something about the cost of some new thingamabob or whatever in outer space. It was going to be this many billions of dollars. And the joke was, it's amazing or funny that it will take us 4 times that amount to build high-speed rail in Canada, based on the current projections. Again, whatever the billions were for whatever this thing was they were building in outer space was a fraction, about 1/4 of the cost we are estimating high-speed rail to cost us. On the ground here, terra firma in Canada. I don't know. Is it apples to oranges? I don't build things in space, so I don't really know. But when you look at the price tags, you have to ask yourself the question. Just like when you look at the collisions, 490 at Homer Watson and Blockline. Self-induced almost since the roundabout was installed. But we think that our most important, or one of our more important road safety initiatives is to ban right-hand turns at red lights. And one of the intersections that has seen the most collisions, Fairway and Wilson, where there are 4 collisions over 5 years, 4, with right-turning vehicles. And that seems to be the priority. I don't get it. How about the 74 collisions between vehicles and light rail trains just last year alone? Is that not a concern? I don't know. Received news from the Ontario Hockey League today that you might be interested in. You probably heard yesterday, and I mentioned it this morning during the Farwell Show 5. These 5 things I like to tell you about to start your day at the beginning of this show. The home opener for the Kitchener Rangers is 100 days from today. That's all the time we have left until the next regular season starts, Friday, September the 18th. At the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, the Rangers will raise their banners for winning the OHL Championship and winning their 3rd Memorial Cup. Then they will take on the Owen Sound Attack in the game. That's on September the 18th, which we knew. But the further information I have received today from the Ontario Hockey League that may be of interest to you. Rivalry Week is all set again. They started this last year. I absolutely loved it. You play 2 games, basically a home and home with one of your rivals. I thought it was a great weekend in the Ontario Hockey League. And last year, our quote-unquote rival was London. We played them at home on a Friday and then went to London on a Sunday. This year, it's going to be the Guelph Storm. So Guelph will play in Kitchener on October the 23rd, and then we will go to Guelph on Sunday, October the 25th. And I like what the OHL is doing here because, as you well know, it was both Kitchener and Guelph who were in the running to host the 2027 Memorial Cup. Guelph won that bid, so they are going to have a guaranteed spot in the Memorial Cup tournament next year. And I don't know, does Kitchener still feel the sting of losing that bid? General Manager Mike McKenzie, you'll remember him at our parade and celebration in downtown Kitchener last week. He talked about November the 19th, learning that the Rangers did not win the Memorial Cup bid. So the team's front office thought about it for a while and then said, screw it. We'll go to Kelowna and win it this year instead. And we did. But don't you think some Rangers fans, and maybe even, they wouldn't say it out loud, would they? But some folks in the Rangers front office wouldn't love it if Kitchener somehow, some way spoiled the Guelph Storm's party next year? I don't know. Rivalry Week will be the Rangers and the Storm, and I, for one, am here for it. The Ontario Hockey League has also announced more crossover series with the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League. Now, if you've heard me complain about this before, I'll spare you complaining again, but I think it's dumb. I think it's ridiculous that teams in Ontario play teams in Quebec and they count in the regular season standings. You can't do that unless everybody gets to play those teams in Quebec. It's goofy. But anyway, Kingston is going to be involved this year. North Bay is going to play Val d'Or. Kingston will play Blainville, Boisbriand. Sudbury against Rouyn-Noranda, and Ottawa and Gatineau. So last year it was just Ottawa, Gatineau, Sudbury, Rouyn-Noranda. This year North Bay and Val d'Or get involved in it, and so too do Kingston and Blainville, Boisbriand. There you go. Some more crossover games between leagues for next year on the OHL schedule. We had been hearing some rumblings that the Kitchener Rangers would go down to New Brunswick and play against Moncton for a weekend, but I guess that's not going to be happening. Too bad. At least I got a trip to Kelowna, British Columbia for the Memorial Cup this year. We are fresh out of time for another day here on the program. Thank you, as always, for being a part of it. Tomorrow morning, I'll come back at 9. We'll do it all over again, okay? My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.